Hey everybody, Jokester here, and welcome to Learning to Cook with a Dash of Jokester. I've been inspired to get better at cooking by watching YouTube videos, and recently I've been learning from Kent Rollins. Now he's an authentic cowboy cook, and he has his own YouTube channel, and he would say he loves himself an iron skillet, he does, and when he cooks up some awesome outdoor country food, it's so good, you know it is. So I put a link to his channel below, and be sure to check him out. He's really fun to watch. Now, I've never owned or cooked with an iron skillet, so I watched some of his videos, and he's got a lot of advice about it. I also decided to watch a lot more on YouTube to learn what they're all about. And I'll tell you what, there are about 1,000 different opinions out there on how to season, clean, and maintain iron cookware. So make sure you do your research, and I'm just giving you what I thought was really good advice. Now, iron skillets can price anywhere from a few dollars all the way up over $200, so you can really go crazy if you have the money. Now, a very popular entry-level brand is Lodge, and they're a high-quality skillet, and so that's what I decided to start with. So I bought a 10-inch and a 12-inch skillet on Amazon for $50, and these come pre-seasoned from the factory. They have a very rough surface compared to what you would find with antique skillets or those expensive skillets, which are a lot smoother. And what I learned from Kent Rollins and several other videos is you can actually sand the surface of these Lodge skillets to make them smoother, and then you can re-season them so you can get that better anti-stick surface. Now, a word of caution here, these are very heavy, and as Arnold Schwarzenegger would say, cooking with an iron skillet is healthy for your body and to build your muscles. And I chose to take some 80 grit sandpaper with a small sander and went over the inside quite a bit to expose some bare metal. I've seen others use grinder wheels and get the surface to almost a mere finish, but I don't like and don't think that that's what you have to do, because some of those people had noticed that when they did that, it was harder for the seasoning to stick to the skillet. So they had to redo it. So what I decided, just took 30 minutes of sanding with about 4 to 5 sheets of the sandpaper, and this is what it looks like, and you can actually hear the difference. So check this out. And here's another great tip to get rid of the old seasoning. You can put the skillets into your oven and run them on a oven cleaning cycle to remove the old seasoning, and that will really prep the skillet to accept the new seasoning. And it was actually a really good thing, because I noticed in a few spots that the seasoning was actually starting to flake off directly from the factory. So I'm real happy that I sanded it down, and I'm going to clean the old seasoning off and then just put brand new seasoning on it. So before you do this though, make sure that you ventilate your kitchen, because when you run your oven cycle, because it creates a lot of fumes, and my cycle ran for about 4 hours. So your oven might be a little bit different. Now there's other methods to remove old seasoning, such as using oven cleaner or soaking in lye or vinegar. You know, check out those YouTube videos if you're interested in that. Do your own research. But I really like this oven cleaning cycle method because it was easy and it did not involve a long process or harsh chemicals. So after letting it cool for several hours, I cleaned it with an SOS pad and some Dawn liquid detergent to remove any remaining residue. And it can rust very quickly, so dry it right away. Make sure it's completely dry. You can put it onto a burner on the stovetop for a few minutes on medium heat to heat it up and make sure it's completely dry. Be careful though with cast iron, because you want to make sure not to heat it up or cool it down too fast, because they can crack. So never ever put cold water on a hot pan or hot water on a cold pan, and same goes for cooking. Start it at a lower temperature to get the pan warm, and then gradually increase the temperature. So don't crank it all the way up to hot right off the bat. So now we're ready to start the seasoning process. But if for some reason you're not ready to start seasoning right away, you should rub a super light coating of canola oil on your pan, and this will prevent flash rusting from happening. So there are a lot of ways to season a pan, and people have strong opinions on this topic, but there's not a consensus on which oil or method is the best. So the only thing that we all agree on is that you have to season your pan or it's going to rust and corrode, and it's not going to be good. So popular oils are Crisco shortening, grapeseed, flaxseed, and there's several other oils that will work. After much research, I chose to go with a product that was made for seasoning cast iron. It's called Crisbee. This is what it looks like, and it comes in a puck or stick form. I chose the puck form, and it comes in this small tin. I also like Crisbee because it will not go rancid over time like other oils. So to season, I start up by warming the pans in a 200-degree oven for 30 minutes, and I take them out one at a time. And as Arnold would say, remember that, so be careful. Use both hands with proper oven mitts. It's also a good idea to put a towel down or something to protect the surface that you're working on. Come on. Thanks, Arnold, for that safety tip. So now I'm going to take this Crisbee out of the tin, and I decided to hold it vertically because it was easier to grab. But basically, I'm going to glide it over the pan, and it starts to melt into an oil instantly. So it only takes a little amount, so don't go too crazy. And next, I take a small lint-free microfiber cloth to spread the oil all over the pan, making sure to thoroughly coat the pan into every nook and cranny. And if you miss a spot, it can rust and cause problems right away. So take your time, make sure you do a really good job. Again, be careful with the skillets as they get very slippery with the oil. Now we want to remove the excess oil with a dry part of the cloth or a second dry cloth so that the pan looks like it's dry. Now there might be a slight sheen to it, but it only takes a small amount of residual oil that has already soaked into the surface. If you leave too much oil, which would have a glossy look to it, it may leave a sticky residue after seasoning, and you don't want that. Remember, use a lint-free cloth. If you use a regular paper towel or a fuzzy cloth, which would leave lint behind, that can be baked into the surface and cause a problem with your seasoning. Okay, so turn up the oven to 400 degrees and place them face down on the rack to bake the pans for 1 hour. You can put some foil on a rack below the pans to catch excess oil, but if you're doing it properly, you should not have to have any oil be dripping off the pans. And it's really a good idea to check after about 10 minutes. Make sure that there's not any excess oil starting to pool on the surface of the pan, which can cause leopard spotting. And if you do see any extra oil, just dry it off with a cloth. After baking it for about an hour, let it cool in the oven for several hours. And here's what it looks like after the first seasoning, a nice golden brown bronze color. That oil has converted to a polymer now, and it's bonded to the pan, and it has created a Teflon-like surface. Now it's time to repeat the seasoning process at least 2 more times, and each time the pan's going to get a little darker, so don't worry that they don't look like that classic black patina. That'll come over time as you properly maintain and use the pan. So here's what I ended up with. I was so happy. They look awesome. And I was very excited to do the classic test to see if you have a nicely seasoned pan. It's the fried egg test. So we're going to cook up an egg and some other breakfast items here. So it's important to have your pan pretty hot on a medium heat. If it's too cold, not hot enough, the egg will stick really bad. So my pan was not quite hot enough when I first started with, so the edges did stick a little, but as you can see, the egg released with a little bit of coaxing with the spatula. And I'm very pleased with the Crisbee seasoning as I was able to use my cast iron pan, fried up breakfast. I also cooked up some bacon, scrambled eggs, and pancakes, and I really didn't have any sticking problems whatsoever. It was very slick. Super excited it worked on the first try. Now with cleaning, it's super important not to use soap. So, if you do, that can eat away your seasoning quickly. If you have any grease in the pan, you'd probably want to wipe that out with a paper towel, drain it into a coffee cup, or you could save it, filter it into a mason jar to keep it to use for future. It's up to you. But basically, you want to get out the excess grease so that it's not going to go down your drain. So I just took the warm pans over to the sink, used warm water. Now, if you have really stubborn food particles, you can use a plastic scraper, or they make a chainmail washcloth that will not hurt the pan or the seasoning. Rinse the pan well, dry it, place it back on the burner on warm heat, and that'll help make sure it's completely dry. And it'll also preheat the pan to prep it for a light coating of the Crisbee to protect it when you're storing it. So with a warm pan, just take the cloth that you use to season the pan with the Crisbee. It'll have enough of that crispy oil left on it. And what you do is just rub a super light coating on the pan. Then take a cloth and dry off the excess. Put it back on the burner to warm it on medium heat until it starts to smoke slightly. And then turn off the burner, let it cool. Your pan is ready to store and use again in the future. I've cooked with my skillet for about a month now and I really enjoy it. So I will do several cast iron recipe videos coming up as I continue to learn. But let me know in the comments what you like to cook in your cast iron. Send me a recipe. I would love to try it out and maybe do a video on it. Thanks again to all the YouTubers and their cast iron videos. Much love and respect. Also thanks to Arnold for stopping by. I'll be back. And until next time, be inspired to cook with a dash of jokester.